This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
You're watching New Money. Before Chinese kids get a head start in science and technology, learning to speak English helps them communicate with the world's top minds in science. And while there are plenty of English teaching apps, the following company has a more scientific approach.
3-year-old Wanza is busy picking up English phrases using an app on her mother's iPad. As an English teacher herself, her mother is impressed with her daughter's progress.
The app doesn't force it or make the child memorize new words. It just continuously exposes the child to English pronunciation. It has a lot of fun activities. For instance, my daughter gets really excited every time she sees Mochu. I think it's had a big impact. I can hear it on her pronunciation. She's a child, so she struggles a bit with homophones, but she's definitely on the right track.
Hi, 你好, 这是 nose.
Some begin even earlier. Lily first let her child play with Kadho when she was only 1 year old. 2 years later, she's very happy with the results.
Children aged 0 to 2 years are very sensitive to information from the outside world. The app uses continuous sounds to activate the child's neurons, which means that it leaves a long-time impression on the child's nervous system. Although you don't see the effects right away, it leaves a long-term impression on her mind. When she studies English later on, this enables her to memorize new words after hearing them only 1 or 2 times, and she won't forget them easily.
The company behind this app is California-based tech company Kadho. Kadho uses an AI called Mochu to create a personalized progress for each user. Focusing on children aged 2 to 7 years, the app helps children internalize the language through games and repetition. Donam Pemba, the person behind this high-tech approach to language education, has a doctorate in neuroscience from the University of California and has worked at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory.
We looked at the biggest need to learn English and the biggest market for English learning, and that's China. And that's the main reason we try to bring it to China, because it's a bigger market and it's really good for the Chinese environment, because the Chinese sound system and Chinese language is completely different than English. From the reading to the characters to how the sounds are, it's completely different. And this is why I think Kadho English can really benefit the Chinese population.
But no matter how good the service, entering a market saturated with well-established local competitors hardly guarantees success. Dr. Pemba explains why he thinks his app will stand a chance in such a competitive foreign environment.
Our core competence is the neuroscience and AI combination, so neuroscience for the curriculum. Also, it helps bootstrap the AI. If we think about the artificial intelligence and the modern era of artificial intelligence, where using deep learning, it's all based on the brain. CNN was based on the visual system, RNN on the neural networks of the brain. So if you look at the brain and how an AI needs to learn, it's similar to human need to learn. So if you have basically a blank brain and it's only stimulated by certain things, it's kind of like a child only growing up in a monolingual household. So currently all AI right now is trained on very clean, labeled data from adults who are native speakers and from like textbooks, and so it's very clean data. So it's like taking a child and making him grow up in this environment that's not very resembling the real world.
Wang Pu is the founder of Skywood Capital and a member of the advisory committee of the Rocket Space Incubator, the incubator where Uber saw its first successes. Wang saw Kadho grow in Silicon Valley and shares what he believes to be the app's core advantages.
When we first heard of Kadho, I didn't believe them. The first investor, their angel investor, is an old business partner of mine, Mr. Amidi, one of the founders behind the Plug and Play Tech Center. Every time we met, he'd tell me about this education company and say I should check it out. What makes Kadho so special is that it uses neuroscience to analyze the structure of your brain and assess which teaching method suits you better, and how it should break down the language for you. This made a big impression on me, because we rely on the brain to learn. If you don't study the brain, you end up simply teaching some language learning skills, share some experiences, or, like some companies, make you answer multiple choice questions. So we have a special obligation to bring this type of new educational tools to China.
Kadho, in the meantime, is finding different ways to expand in the Chinese market.
Kadho, like we said, initially the company was founded out of our own personal needs to help children of the world learn languages in the future. But we see, as we were doing this product, we actually see the company vision to enable communication between children and technology. And if we look at the way that the world's been growing, like initially we all learned from radio in the early 1900s, and then television, and then the desktop computer, and now the web interaction through like Facebook and these type of Weibo, and then you go into mobile. So now we're at the era where people are actually interacting with everything, from the toy to the piano to the fridge, car, heater, camera. So these type of things is children are going to grow up now speaking to technology, and they're going to actually think of technology and learn from technology. So, but there's a big problem right now. The technology just can't understand the children. So we hope to be able to bridge this gap and be the #1 leader in whenever children need to communicate with technology.
Wang Pu of Skyward Capital shares some of his thoughts on why companies such as TechPlay and Kadho will be increasingly important to China.
President Xi Jinping speaks of the rejuvenation of the Chinese nation, and a core part of achieving this is a rejuvenation of education, AI, and companies like TechPlay, and try to incorporate them into our traditional education, because at the moment we're way behind. Our need to change is enormous. I'd go so far as saying we have the most urgent need in the world to change our current static education system, including how knowledge is transmitted. Only by doing this can we shorten the distance and compete head-to-head with highly developed countries.
Well, as we saw there, education is evolving as the future of work and society are being transformed by technology. We need creative ways of delivering education that will remain relevant long after the exams. With that, we come to the end of this episode of New Money. I'm Chen Lai in Beijing. See you same time, same place next week.